Hello.
Hi, everyone.
It's been a good week.
It's been a good week indeed.
Another week being able to share our experiences in our life. It's just a little fun project for us.
Welcome back to
ICUBED. Today we are going to be talking about something that maybe a little bit of a vibe 2 years ago or last year.
Was it 2 years ago?
I think it was 2 years ago. You know those anagrams that people were taking all the time? You know, the Enneagram Test. We're going to be revealing some of our numbers from the Enneagram Test. And then we're going to be talking about
specifically our worst fears. Because I have come to the conclusion, and I think many other people as well, that as couples, we need to be able to understand where our fears stem from, where the partner's fears stem from, and then be able to work with that.
Yes. So we are trying to work with our fears. If I'm afraid of the things that you fear, then that can keep me away from you. And if you are afraid of my fears,
that can put me at a distance from you.
Exactly. It can push you away. So we want to be able to deal with fears in the proper and correct way. And so in order to do that, we actually have to know what we fear.
Well, I personally love taking personality tests, so I actually had to look up what the difference was. The Enneagram test is set apart in that it looks at key motivators instead of your traits or the symptomatic behaviors that you have. So it's more...
Gets to the root of the issue.
The root of the issue, exactly, which I find highly, highly interesting because I'm kind of into psychology. Correct.
It kind of like gives you that purpose, that the driving forces behind your own personality and the reason why you do the things that you do.
And what I'd like to point out, a personality test or a motivator test or the Enneagram test, any of those tests do not define who you are. They give you ideas of what motivates you and how you react and how you act, but don't chain yourself to the definition that this test spits out, because that would just limit you and your potential.
100% great point. If the first thing you ask the person when you get to know them is, what's your type?
Which honestly I did a lot, so
do that. Well, it's true, right? Because
yes.
Like when we get into these kind of set and defined modes, we say, okay, finally I found something that works for me. Mm-hmm. This is good. I want to see how you match up to this thing. Mm-hmm. We all want to know more about ourselves, but it's a bit of a narcissistic thing, right? Because all we want to do is hear somebody really define us.
Yeah, and say the good things about us.
And say the good thing. Oh, and some of the negative things too. We want to know our negative stuff, but we want other people to tell us our negative stuff.
Yes, so we don't like to explore them ourselves.
We don't like to explore them ourselves. We wouldn't naturally admit to it, but we would read something and say, oh, okay, yeah, I do that sometimes. Or that is me, or that is you.
Nishan and I, we went through a lot of very tough situations. So, funnily enough, when we took the Enneagram test and we looked at, what does the test or what does our typology say we are in our worst? What am I when I'm struggling? What is he when he's struggling? And we found that they're pretty accurate, honestly. Yeah. So that's why we want to look at what our worst fears are.
That's right. Turns out I'm a type 7, and the type 7 is an entertainer. Correct. Who would have guessed?
I don't know.
Not me. Yeah. No, obviously I'm an entertainer. I love entertaining people. I love kind of being
the center of
attention, the star of the show. Mm-hmm. The star of the show. My basic desire is actually to be satisfied and content, to have my needs fulfilled. Of course, it is a bit of a selfish thing, but that's my basic need, just to have my own desires fulfilled.
Which in so many ways, you could see that mirroring into your motivation for your wrestling career. It's like you want that need to be fulfilled, and you're so good at it because you are so enthusiastic and so ambitious in fulfilling that need.
That's a great point. Sometimes it's not even about winning or losing for me within the aspect of wrestling, which is my profession. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's just about the complete fulfillment of I did something that fulfilled me and I did it to the best of my ability. Yeah, it is a desire to be fulfilled. None of that other stuff matters. What matters is, do you feel satisfied, satiated, complete, whole? So my key motivations are, I want to maintain my freedoms fun and happiness, and to avoid missing out. I have a fear of missing out, I guess. FOMO, huge. And avoid pain.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. It's interesting because as a wrestler, you face up to your physical pain. No problem with that. But emotional pain, that's a whole nother story.
That's a whole nother story. I tuck tail and run the other way. It's true. It's true. And I want to avoid pain because who wants to... I don't know who wants to just enjoy a very painful situation, but avoiding pain, avoiding emotional pain, trauma, and maybe it's from my past, maybe it's from the things that I've experienced. But I think a key part of this is wanting to maintain my freedom, right?
Right.
Because I feel that someone who's in a state of pain or in a state of hurt, they're not free to be joyful. They're not free to do the things that you want. Like, think about being depressed. Think about being sad. Think about being angry. That person isn't free. That person is trapped by their own emotions. I generally don't like to be trapped by my own emotions.
When do we become our worst? When we're surrounded by our biggest fear. That's when we become our worst. I've experienced Nishan when he has been in emotional pain and when he has felt deprived from something that he perceived as incredibly important to his emotional life. And seeing that, Nishan tends to become very self-destructive. Whenever there's pain, whenever he feels deprived, he has a tendency to self-destruct, to do things that he would normally never do, to get into situations and trouble that he would actually never get himself into if he was, emotionally happy or stable. For me, getting to know that in him was incredibly scary because I didn't know how to interpret that. In fact, whenever he was at his worst, I thought he was pushing me away because I was at fault, because I had done something wrong, because I had, hurt him. I had, by mistake even, done something that he wasn't okay with, and then he would just aggressively push me away. Even according to this test, and as we've grown together, we've learned to face his fear by me, first of all, understanding that it's not that he doesn't love me or that he wants to reject me. It's that he, in his self-destructive mode, pushes everyone away. I've learned to call it out for what it is and tell Nishan, right now, you're being self-destructive. Where is that coming from? What are you afraid of? What is causing you pain?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for that analysis of myself. As a partner and as being in a relationship with you and a marriage with you, what's important is that she not run away from my fear of self-destructiveness, but that you
step into it with me.
That she says, no, your pain doesn't scare me. Your self-destructive behavior doesn't scare me. Your issues don't scare me. I'm going to walk in this with you.
Absolutely.
And so now let's do a self-analysis of you.
Yes, me.
Find out what kind of things you deal with. All right?
Yes. So I'm a type 1, which is titled or considered the idealist. Very organized. They're very ambitious, a little strict, a little stiff. They have their good parts. So my basic desire is to be good, to have integrity, to be balanced, to be a good person, which may sound strange to some people because that's not how they're wired. That's definitely not how you are wired. But I want to be good. That's my key motivation.
And I think that's maybe like a first child thing too. You're the first of 3 children. I think that's a first child type of thing. I've never been a first child, so I don't know that feeling.
You're the baby.
I am the baby for sure. Even amongst my twin. It's this feeling of like wanting to be, hey, you're the responsible, good person that
everyone can run to with their problems and can depend on.
That's right.
That's huge for me.
Huge.
Again, my motivations is to want to be right. I really love being right. I love being right. Which kind of gets on your nerves, I know.
So when she's wrong, let me tell you, when she is wrong,
you rub it in my face.
I make sure to let her know, sweetie. I make sure to let her know.
My personality tries to strive higher and improve everything in my surroundings and in myself. And I want to continuously be able to justify myself and my actions. I want to have a reason behind everything. To be beyond criticism.
Beyond criticism.
Yeah, I want to be beyond criticism.
Wait, can you explain that a little bit more?
It means that I'm so good that no one can critique me.
Yeah. Above reproach.
Above reproach, yes.
Yeah, she is, for sure.
Yes, and not to be condemned by everyone because my basic fear is being corrupt or being evil and being defective.
Or being perceived in such a way.
Exactly.
Like the fear is not so much that you are, because like you would never perceive yourself to be that way.
If other people perceive me as evil long enough,
then you would accept
I
that
identify
trait.
with that.
Okay, yeah, that's fair.
My biggest fear is for people to perceive me as evil, as bad, as a traitor, as a liar, as someone who cannot be trusted and depended on, as someone who let them down, that is my biggest fear. It can really influence my behavior. If I'm in a surrounding or exposed to people who think that of me, the worst comes out of me.
Right. And I feel like a part of that worst is like this behavior that isn't you comes out. And then people see a reflection of you. This isn't actually who she is. It's just a byproduct of her fear.
So I tend to react pretty extremely to that. I become very self-righteous, very defensive, very passive-aggressive, even depressed because I'm surrounded by the perception that I'm evil and bad. And that is the worst thing that could happen to me. Some of the things I say can become very black and white, very cruel in some ways.
Yeah.
I can be very cruel when I'm in a place of fear, when I'm surrounded by my worst fear, with my words specifically. And I can be very cruel.
Some of that cruelness stems from this fact of like things building up too much too, where she allows things to build to a point where something that maybe was smaller or something that maybe is a non-issue, and a situation that's like, whoa, I didn't really think you would perceive it to be like this, or I didn't think you would react like this. This is in that place. There is, there's some hypocrisy there. There is some kind of finger pointing there.
A lot of finger pointing.
A lot of finger. And the crazy part is that there is a time and place to call someone out for something, right? Maybe she calls me out for something that I'm doing that's wrong, and what she's saying is true, but like her heart and her motivation behind it is not in line with truth or with love at all. And so that's when I say, while it's true what you're saying, and while it's true what you're arguing, you bringing it up right now in this situation against me, you have to see your own issue before you can judge me for my issue. It's almost like the plank in the eye kind of thing, right? So her biggest fear is judgment from other people, other people's perception of her as evil, bad, wrong, and just her taking on this identity that she knows is not herself. She's such a sweet character, and everyone who's ever met her, would never say, oh, she's evil, she's bad, she's this bad figure. The one thing that I feel like I've had to do in order to help to step into her fear with her is show her lots of love.
That you don't react in anger.
Yeah.
You're always very calm and collected, and you try to untone my anger.
Yeah.
It's like, where are you coming from?
So, I don't react emotionally towards her aggressiveness or her passive aggressiveness. My biggest thing is I recognize that there's something different about you. I recognize that you're doing something different. I recognize that this isn't really normal for you to do, but it's okay for you to feel some type of way. I'm not going to get caught up emotionally in the fact that you're being painful or mean towards me. I'm going to say, okay, let's just figure this out.
Not getting offended by what I say.
And not being offended by what she says. I don't allow my emotions to get in the way. 2, I don't allow what she says to offend me. Even though I could take offense to it, I choose not to. I know that she would never hurt me. I know that even if she's saying something that's hurtful, I know that's not. And lastly, I just want to work out the problem with her. What are you feeling right now? Why are you feeling like? And how can I help you address it?
With that being said, that was an insight into our worst fears and how we help each other to deal with them.
Yes, and it is not an easy process. You will fail, I'm sure, at some point in time. Getting to the root of our fear, me knowing her fear, her knowing my fear, has really helped us
navigate
our conflict. We appreciate you guys for watching.
Oh, thank you for watching.
Be sure to subscribe and comment. And if there's anything specific that you guys would like to see, be sure to comment, send us a message. We want to thank you so much again.
See you next week.
We will see you next week.
Bye.
Goodbye.